Arch Advocate Podcast. It's Friday, big weekend, big 4-day weekend, right? You had yesterday off, you got today off, 2 more days, you're back to work on Monday. Did you guys have a happy Thanksgiving? Did you get into political disagreements with your family members? Did you have to disown anybody? Isn't that weird? You know, the people, it's very strange that in Western culture, we have wholeheartly embraced, just wholesale embraced this idea of like, don't talk about politics or religion. Isn't that such a, don't you find that's bizarre? Now listen, I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight as to like one of the main things in my development in becoming a word snob is I actually, as a teenager, I actually took etiquette class, right? We had a class, there was, weekly classes to go to, there was homework involved, there's actually a book, right? There's an encyclopedia of etiquette, and it's massive. If you're watching on the YouTube video, you can see my hands, but it's like a dictionary, it's huge. And I had to learn a lot of stuff, things like, it is inappropriate to look your waiter in the eyes. It is inappropriate to say thank you to a waiter. Things like that, like weird little things in etiquette. So like learning all of these things, it's not worldwide etiquette, it's Western civilization etiquette, right? And that's one of the many reasons why word usage and the development of words and the mutation of words is so important to me, because it means something. Right? There's a reason why we open doors and pull out chairs for women. There's a reason for that. It's not just something that was made up, I'm sure at the very beginning it was, but it's ingrained into our culture. There's reasons why we do certain things. Some of them make a lot of sense, and some of them are just bizarre. Like, don't talk about politics or religion. Especially at the dinner table, it's like, that's bizarre. Because those are the two things in reverse order. It's like religion and politics. Those are the things that you need to be talking about. If there's somebody sitting across from you, like I was talking with a very close friend of mine. He's a Muslim. He's from Turkey. I was talking to him. I've been out of contact with him for a while, and I was kind of bringing him up to speed on my life and the birth of my son over the last weekend and all that sort of thing. And he's a Muslim. I'm a Christian. He knows what I believe and I know what he believes. And when we talk a great deal, almost exclusively about religion. And if we're not talking about that, we're talking about breeds of dogs and that sort of thing. He's a big fan of huskies and whatever. But we talk about religion. And you know why? Because we're friends. And he can sit across from me and be like, yeah, God has no son, and Jesus didn't actually die on the cross. That was actually Judas, and all this sort of. I sit there and it's like, yeah, no, I don't. That's no. I believe something completely different than what you believe, right? But we know that about each other. We talk about it, and because we talk about it, we're close, right? There's trust. I trust that he's not going to get upset, and he trusts that I'm not going to get upset because we're both adults. Where did this thing come up where we're like, don't talk about politics or religion? Particularly with your own blood. Your own cousins and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters, you believe that you should stay away from those two primarily important, topics with your own blood. I don't think you should talk about politics or religion with a perfect stranger. Hi, my name is Pete. Jesus Christ is Lord. You know what I mean? That's not a good opener. Sure, don't talk about politics, religion with somebody who you don't have any connection with whatsoever. It's intrusive. It's the same thing. Don't talk about veganism. Don't talk about atheism. Don't talk about any of the isms with somebody that you don't know. You first have to build rapport. You have to build trust. You have to learn that person's like cadence and their rhythms and how they talk and what it is, are they a contrarian? Are they this? Are they that? You know what I mean? Like, you have to learn, and then you can talk about those things. But as soon as you have that trust, yes, politics and religion. Yes, you should talk about politics and religion. Why? How can you know what I mean? Like, I don't know the history of like when did that come about in Western civilization? Like, we're so polite, we're so well mannered, we're so cultured, we're so entrenched in etiquette that we decided, let's just not talk about these two things that shape everything. Right? It's like saying, don't talk about mathematics. Why? Well, because, most people don't have a grasp of terribly difficult mathematics. Therefore, don't talk about it. It's like, no, do talk about it. If you don't know, you know what I mean? Like, my sons don't know anything about mathematics. I'm going to have to talk about it with them. And, where did this come up? Don't talk about, and there's all these stories about like, oh, I got in a fight with my dad. I got in a fight with my aunt. My lesbian cousin came over this Thanksgiving and we got in an argument about Trump, and now we're never going to talk to each other again. It's like, how come you're not free to talk about, why is she not free? And why are you not free to not be an asshole with your points of views? Like, of course I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative. Right? Politics and religion. This is who I am. I've come to these points of view by a great deal of information, right? And a great deal of grace and divine intervention. But the fact is, okay, there it is again on my Telegram group, dude. What is the deal with all of these jihadis or whatever? Why are there so many people with these kooky Arabic letters trying to join my Telegram group? Blocked. Right, Ian? You're the last person who wrote in. Where are you at, Todd Milligan? Politics and religion, why is it that people are so afraid is it because we believe that we are incapable of keeping our asshole underneath the underwear when we discuss these things? Are you unable to talk about religion and politics without being an asshole? I'm aware that there's people out there who think that there should be abortions up until the very last day of a full-term pregnancy. I'm aware that those people are out there. And if those people are capable of sitting across from you without losing their caca, I'll sit with them. I'll talk with them. I'll talk with them as long as they're willing to sit. And I will get angry, but I will, they won't be able to see it. I'll keep that to myself. I'll keep my asshole underneath the underwear. I'll keep my underwear on. I'm not going to pull the asshole out. Right? Because it's if I want people to change their mind, then I have to be willing to be patient. And more than that, though, that's primary. That's like first in order of importance. But you know what else is also first in order of importance is me knowing what I'm talking about and being confident in what I believe. I think the reason people are so afraid to get into topics of these things is because they themselves, if you can't have a conversation about these things without getting angry at people, it's because you're not confident. And when those people sit across the table from me and be like, oh my God, birth control should be paid for by the government. It's like, okay, well, if you can't slow down and be like, okay, well, let's talk about this because we're talking about other people's money now. We're talking about tax dollars. The government doesn't just make money. They're not a business. The money that they get comes from me. And if you want me to pay for something, you can either steal it, you can either strong arm me by using the government, which always results in war, or you can ask me real nicely. And if you ask me really nicely, you're going to have to explain, well, why am I paying for this? When we look at the government buying $600 hammers and $1,200 toilet seats for the Pentagon, these, we've all heard these stories of these massive expenditures by the government. It's like, okay, now, as an American, it's like, well, hold on now. Now that's my money that you just spent. You need to explain to me how this horrible thing happened. How is it that you spent $600 on a hammer? You need to give me an explanation, and then when you're done with your BS explanation, you need to issue an apology because you wasted my money. And when I see millions of dollars going to Planned Parenthood, and then Planned Parenthood turns around and makes massive donations to the Democrat Party, that's my money. And when I sit down and I explain that to somebody, if they fight, it's like those aren't theories. Those are very visible facts. And if you can't sit across from me and digest that fact and be like, okay, now I can kind of see why you might have a problem with the government forcing me to pay for abortions and pay the abortion clinic who then takes my money and pays for the campaigning of people who I think are devils. You know what I mean? Like, are you saying you can't sit across from me and at least come to a place of understanding? Like why half of America would be pissed when they see that sort of thing happening? It's bizarre to me. So I guess the point of all that, and listen, today's show is probably going to be pretty short. We got a house full, from floor to ceiling, we have a house full of sick people. I'm sick. Caleb was throwing up this morning, the first time in his life. Little Ryland is, he's strong. He's just, he was born at the end of November, so it's, everybody's sick, and he's, that was his introduction to life was, getting sick. He's, I'm not going to get into it. Everybody's going to be fine. It's just we're all under the weather, and it was kind of a quick morning. But I guess what I'm saying is like when it comes to family and people that you've known your whole life that they might as well be family, do talk about politics and religion and sit them down and just be like, look. They say don't talk about politics and religion, but I think what we need to do is practice being cool with one another as we discuss politics and religion, because we all have to, no matter what happens, because I've got some pretty grim prophecies about what's coming in the future of the United States, just based on the facts, right? Based on the facts that we now have, Congress people saying, we want to come and seize your guns. We want to make a mandatory buyback. And if you don't, once we make that law, if you don't come and turn in your guns, we're going to come get you. That's already happening in the United States. Like those are very real. It's like, look, no matter what happens, whether it be war or massive bloodshed, civil war, that sort of thing, or even just, the two different sides, the different ideologies just stop talking together with one another. Whatever happens, something is happening, right? The winds have changed, and something will be the result. And the way to make it so that result goes down easier and goes down more correctly, right, than in the past, right? In the past, we had differences of opinion in the United States, and we went to war with one another, right? So the Civil War is by far still the bloodiest war in American history. And before that, it was a group of colonials that said, hey, listen, England, we're all English citizens here, but we don't want to be English citizens anymore. We want to form our own thing. And instead of people sitting down and talking it out, we went to war, right? That's what's in the heart of man. It's always there. And the more you're able to talk things out and reason together, the less likely bloodshed and war becomes. So there's nothing more important than talking. There's nothing that you should be doing, talking about more than your religious beliefs and your political beliefs with trusted people. And more importantly, you should be talking to people who disagree with you. You're not going to grow unless somebody's sharpening you, right? You're not going to be able to understand your opponent's point of view unless you sit and listen to them, as annoying as that may be. You will become better. You will be regarded as being more loving and more understanding by your opponent. Like the more you discipline yourself to sit there and listen to what they say and like try to understand and try to keep your mouth shut and not just wait for your turn to talk, but to actually listen to what they say and try to understand why it is that they believe that. Perhaps they believe it because that's, what their professors told them, and they see their professors as being some sort of priest class of people. Maybe they believe that because that's what all their friends believed, and they're just kind of go with the herd sort of people. Who knows? I mean, there could be a lot of different things. Just like, in the case of my friends who are Muslim, right? I've got one really good friend, he's from Turkey. I got another good friend, he's from Jordan. Another friend, he's from Saudi Arabia, right? They're all Muslims. Guess what? That's where they're from. That's the national religion. They've never really heard anything else. There's a reason why they're Muslims. It's because that's what they've always been. You know what I mean? Like, and if you can just be like, okay, well, this guy believes this stuff because this is what he's always believed. There's a reason for it. And now I'm going to let him talk and share his faith with me. And then I'm going to expect that he's going to sit there and let me talk and share my faith with him. And out of that can form friendship and a deeper understanding of what everybody else is going through as in their human experience. Because there's some wild stuff in the human heart. I didn't even really want to talk about this, like politics and religion and Thanksgiving, other than, it's relevant because it was yesterday. But there's something else that just happened that I want to talk about this, and you'll see the tie-in or the callback. Like, I've brought up the case of first contact scenarios with tribes in like the Amazon forest. And I've made this point a few times. Every once in a while, excuse me, I'm sorry for all the coughing, you guys. But every once in a while, we'll be chopping down the Amazon, and we'll bump into a tribe of never before contacted people, right? So it's just like in Star Trek, it's a first contact scenario. And we have, because of the way that our societies and our laws and our etiquette and our culture have formed over the last, 2,000 years, we now have legal procedures on what we do as human beings when we are faced with this problem. Because these people, when we come in contact with them, like to this day, right? It's today is November 23rd in the year of our Lord, 2018, right? If you go to the Library of Congress and you look up today's date or yesterday's date, there's always a YOL, year of our Lord. That's why it's 2018, because 2018 years ago, right? You do the math. It's November 23rd today in the year of our Lord 2018, and there are still tribes of people who have not figured out the wheel. The wheel, right? Stone Age, pre-Stone Age. There are people alive on this planet right now who still have no idea, what the moon and the stars and the sun, like what those things are up there doing. They have no idea that we figured out how to fly around like gods in the air. They have no idea. You know what I mean? Like they're so backwards. I wouldn't even say backwards. They're just people frozen in time. They never came and joined the rest of us. Somehow these people still exist. They haven't even figured out the wheel. Can you imagine? Right? Can you imagine if you were born into that tribe? I have a very strong belief that human souls are either assembled or fabricated or created or whatever in heaven and are sent down for a purpose, right? And that your parents' DNA and all the coming together of all that stuff, like that all bakes into the pie. But it's like, can you imagine if your soul had been placed into the womb of a woman in some weird tribe that like had no if you were right now just walking around the jungle with a spear, right, that you made out of a sharpened rock, that you took out of that, what's that black stone that comes out of volcanoes? It's real easy to sharpen, and you can make it really sharp. It starts with an O. I forget. But like that's literally what those people do. They walk around with spears and they stab things like pigs, rabbits, whatever they can get their hands on, and evidently they like to spear other people. This happens. We run into these people pretty consistently, about once every 10 years or so. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but they're still out there. And there's enough of them out there that it's like, yeah, we're probably going to keep running into these people for quite a long time. Our own planet is still so undiscovered that we have no idea how many different tribes of people are living in the Amazon right now. Like with all of our technology and the fact that we can put a vehicle on the planet Mars, we can put satellites into Jupiter's orbit. We put a satellite. What was that one that just left our solar system like a year ago or 2 years, something like that? Like we have a satellite that is no longer even in our solar system. It's really far away, right? And yet we have not explored our own planet fully. We have no idea what's going on in the middle of the Amazon jungle. We have no idea how many different tribes of people are still out there completely uncontacted. All we have right now is a procedure for what we do when we find them. And most of that procedure is don't touch them, don't talk to them, don't get close to them, because A, they'll probably kill you, and 2, you're probably carrying the Spanish flu or something, and you'll probably kill them all. So we have procedure. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is because there is a fresh story to remind you, and I wanted to take this opportunity and forgive the grim nature of me doing this and like being opportunistic with this guy who just lost his life. But I need to, because the story is fresh. It's right now. You can go and pull up this story right now and see that I'm telling you the truth. And that's why I'm going to talk about this, is that this U.S. missionary was killed with a bow and arrow by a hostile island tribe. So they haven't figured out the wheel, but they have figured out bows and arrows, which is actually pretty common. An American man has reportedly been shot and killed with arrows after approaching a remote and hostile tribe living in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands with the intent of converting them to Christianity. The man, identified as 27-year-old John Allen Chau, traveled to North Sentinel Island, where a tribe of between 50 to 150 people have lived for thousands of years with very little contact with the outside world. Okay. You guys can read the whole story. So it's American Christian guy decides he's going to go and he's going to bring the good word of Jesus Christ to these people, and they killed him. And that is not, by itself, that story is not uncommon. There was a movie probably 15 years ago that came out called Through the Gates of Heaven, or Through Heaven's Gate, or something like that, about an exact same scenario, only it happened like down in South America. These Christian missionaries went in. The missionaries went down there with their families and everything, and then the men of those families like went out to these tribes, and all of them got murdered. And then the wives took their children and they went, because they had an understanding that even in those tribes it was kind of taboo to kill women and children. So they went and they told those people, like, we forgive you for murdering all of our husbands and orphaning all these children. And they were all converted and whatever. But so I just told you that story really quick, just to let you know, like, this story is not unique in that particular sense. And just, I'm going to get to why that's important for people to live. You guys might remember I had Mike Douglas on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, like, could you still come to the same morality? Like, I've made this point several times, like, the reason why we are the way we are in the West is because of Christianity, and there's no getting around that, right? Like, if there's any sort of, like, the reason you don't die from the flu every time you get it is because you've had the flu before, and because your parents, when they were kids, they had the flu before. Because their parents, your great-grandparents, and your great-great-grandparents, like, the flu has been introduced into your DNA and has been for this all time, right? And so now, as you live, like, the reason why you, even when you're a little baby, the reason why you're able to fight off the flu is because you've been touched by it already. You've been affected by it already, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nor would you want to, because that's how your immune system works now. Everything affects everything, right? And in the Western world, we have the manners that we have and the morals that we have because of Christianity. And there's people out there who say, well, are you saying that I could not come to the same morality without Christianity? And my answer is, no, you couldn't. Because nobody ever did. People who have been raised in a culture outside of Christianity have a very different moral compass. Do you understand that? If you take Christianity out of Europe, you have to go all the way back, right? You have to go all the way back to just the Roman Empire. When the Romans, who were like the most civilized and advanced people, they were horrifically murderous. Right? Even after all of the great philosophers and after all of the great inventions that Rome produced, like the guy, you know where we get, like, gravity-powered irrigation from? That comes from Italy, right? Surgical tools, the scalpel and the rib spreader and all that. That was actually, there was one guy invented those. And you can look at the tools of surgery that guy invented. He lived like 2,000 years ago, and he was the surgeon for one of the Caesars, one of the emperors. We still use those tools to this day, but even with all of those advancements, like, the Romans were horrifically brutal people. They fed, when Christians came around, they were just feeding them to lions. They used to have these blood sports where they would just throw these gladiators in an audience and be like, okay, get to killing one another. That's crazy brutality. No regard for human life whatsoever. The idea of a non-aggression principle, it never even occurred to them. And then you travel a little further north. You go north of Italy, pre-Christianity, and you look at you can see historically what those people were like, what the Germans were like, what the French were like, what the English were like, and what the Irish were like. Savages. Savage people. You want to talk about, like, well, couldn't you just come to that morality? It's like, well, if you could, then you would have. But they didn't. It was not until Christianity was injected into these different places, particularly Rome, because Rome ruled the world, and as Rome went, the world went. And when Rome started going Christian, the world started going Christian. No, you cannot have Judeo-Christian ethics and morals without Judaism and Christianity. You can't have it. And here's proof. Once again, see, the reason I want to bring this up is that, like, when it comes to the science of people, it's very hard to nail anything down when it comes to like behavioral sciences and these sorts of things. It's really hard to get a pure scientific law on the books, because in order to do that, you need to have a laboratory, right? You need to have a laboratory of people, right? Like when they do double-blind tests, or they do a placebo effect tests, what they'll do is they'll take like 10 sick people and they'll isolate them. They'll sequester them. They'll take 10 sick people, and 10 of those people they'll give like the new trial medication that they're trying to figure out if it works or not. And the other people, they'll give them like sugar pills as a placebo. And what's weird is that like about the same number of people on both sides get better. And so there's a placebo effect, and it's very difficult to get those results because you wouldn't be able to use somebody like me in a test like that, because I'm aware of the placebo effect. I've already done the study. So if you put me in that group, I've been contaminated by information. If that doctor comes and gives me a pill, I'm going to have it in my mind like, oh boy, there is literally it's literally 50-50. That this pill is either some crazy genius's idea of medicine, or it's just a capsule with sugar in it. And you know, although I'm smart enough to know that, I'm too dumb to know the difference. But you wouldn't be able to use me in that. So you see what I'm saying? Like when it comes to studying what's truly in the heart of man, it's difficult because it's difficult. You can't get people in a pure state. You know what I mean? You can't test babies because they can't talk, right? Like you can't you know what I'm saying? Like it's very difficult to have just a pure, clean slate of human people. But when we come to these tribes, these untouched virgin, you know what I mean? They're virgins to the rest of the world. They have no idea. There was a tribe. Here's a funny story, just really quick. In World War II, there was a war in the South Pacific between the United States and Japan. Right? There's one thing that a lot of people don't have an appreciation for is how many islands are in the Pacific and Indian Ocean. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Just the Pacific Ocean is just peppered with islands. There's the Philippines, the Hawaiian, Samoan, you know what I mean? Like there's just thousands of islands. And the United States found this island that was, it was strategically valuable because of how close it was to Japan, and it was valuable because it had some soil on it that would be very easy to convert into an airfield, right? The problem is that there was a tribe of people living there that it was a first contact situation. They didn't know that there was airplanes and bombs and guns and whatever. They were just minding their own damn business living on this island. So the United States went to them and they said, look, we don't want to take over your island. We just want to use it. And what we're going to do in exchange for you is we will feed you. You won't have to plant crops. As long as we're here, we'll bring you grains and we'll bring you meat and we'll feed you the whole time. And that was the deal that they made, is that they offered them food in exchange for use of their island. Now these are people that, they lived outdoors. Every time they had a meal, it was a struggle. Every time they picked their crops, it was a struggle because they didn't have the knowledge of farming that we do. You know what I mean? So we showed up and we said, look, we'll feed you. You won't have to put any amount of effort into feeding yourself. And they said, all right, that sounds pretty much like winning the lottery. Yeah, sure, come on in and bring all your equipment or whatever. So The United States went there, built an airfield, and we used that airfield to attack Japan on a pretty regular basis. And then the war was over. And so the United States pulled up everything that, we had on that island, and we left. The only thing that was left there was like the tarmac. Just the tar that was on the ground that we used for the airfield. That was the only thing that was left. Now these natives, they didn't know any better, right? Here's what happened to these poor natives. For a number of years, these white devils showed up, bringing them food all the time. And they completely removed them from having to hunt and having to, plant or grow crops or harvest crops or whatever. It was just like free food all the time. And then all of a sudden, these white devils, they just got up and left, and they got into their flying machines and flew off into the horizon. And what these tribesmen did, they were like, okay, F this. We want to go back to the time when the food just arrived out of the sky for us. So what they did is they gathered up a bunch of sticks, right? And they whittled down these sticks, and they built an idol to pray to the gods of, the gods that showed up and just brought them, flour and wheat and lettuce and, all these foods. The idol that they built to please this god was an airplane. They literally built a gigantic effigy, right? And the god, the effigy, was an airplane. Out of their memory, they put all these sticks together in the shape of an airplane. And they left it out there on the tarmac. Because that was their way of saying, God of, whatever God that arrives in these airplane-looking things and just brings us food. In their minds, the airplane is where the food was coming from. The airplane was the vessel in which God delivered this food to them and made their lives so much easier. And so they built a false idol. There's pictures of it. Some people went later to check in on them to see how they were doing, and these people were all worshiping this idol of an airplane. The reason I tell you that story is because that just happened. Right? When did the Second World War end? Right? 1940s. That just happened. That was recent. And the reason I'm pointing out this man's story, John Allen Chau, who was from the United States and killed on the North Sentinel Island just in the last couple of days. The reason I bring this up is the thing is that the more advanced we get, the more arrogant and prideful we get, and the more we tend to forget what is truly in the heart of man. We can look back on Germany in the 1930s and think, well, those were people that lived a long time ago. And, the world has kind of learned its lesson. We're never going to do that again, because we're grown up now. But I beg to differ, because what Germany did, it comes from a heart condition. It comes from a place in your soul, what the Germans did. And it's not over. We have not graduated from it. We have not evolved out of it. We've not become so enlightened that we are immune to it. It's in us. And anytime that we can see like Nazi Germany, we have to look at that and understand whatever caused that is in the heart of all men. Right? Just like if you look at great achievers. Right? If you look at Michael Jordan, people say, "Oh, there's never going to be another Michael Jordan." It's well, that's true, because Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan, right? And people say "Oh, well, you can achieve great things because another man achieved great things." You're never going to be Michael Jordan, but you can have the same level of greatness. You can have the same level of achievement. You just have to work as hard as he did. People say, well, Shaquille O'Neal, he'll never be a horseback, jockey, right? Because he's 10 feet tall or whatever. And that's just kind of a funny thing, but it's like, the point is like, you look at Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, whatever, Lance Armstrong, whoever. You look at people who have achieved like greatness in their own, or even guys like Ben Carson, Nikolai Tesla, the guy that invented the Jarvik, whatever his name was, the heart, the artificial heart thing. Like, you can achieve greatness. And we know that because other people have achieved greatness. Like, whatever is possible for other men to do, and women, all right? Whatever is possible for other people to do, you can do the same thing. Because those are just people. They're not better than you, right? They're not you're not going to be able to be the world's foremost authority on pediatric neurology like Ben Carson is, but you can achieve the same level of greatness just in whatever it is that you're good at. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the proof of that is that there have been so many great men and women. Kind of takes away your excuses. But the reverse of that is true as well. If all of Nazi Germany, like if all these Germans can be turned into Jew murdering Nazis, well then it's possible that could happen to you too. And I know that that's a very uncomfortable thought. And you're probably sitting like, oh no, that's not possible. Well then I submit to you that you've not thought about it. You've not thought about what it would take, like how little it would take to get you to start turning in your neighbors. You get cut off from your food supply. If you've got children, or even if you're by yourself, you get cut off from food and water and electricity and internet and whatever, you're going to go through withdrawals. You're going to become desperate and panicky, and then you're going to be capable of some pretty wild stuff. Because that's exactly what happened to Germany. So my point is that like whatever heights mankind is capable of, you are capable of those things. That's how all these speakers make so much money, like Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and who I love. I like those guys. But the reason why they're able to make so much money and get so much love and respect from people is because those people come up on the scene and they say, no, like you are capable of greatness. Everyone is capable. Everybody can be great if they'll just do the work. If the individual places the right set of circumstances on themselves, like having a disciplined schedule and having a disciplined prayer life and thought life and writing and meditational life and reading books, educational books, things that are going to enrich your life, like these sorts of things, and a plan and a vision. If you place those things on yourself, you can achieve greatness. And it's a formula. If you just work the formula, you can make yourself happier, you can make yourself wealthier, you can make yourself a better husband, you can make yourself a better father or wife or mother, whatever. You just have to impose some things on yourself that are going to be a little uncomfortable, a little bit out of the norm, right? So if that's true, then the reverse is true. You are capable of wild depths of depravity if only the circumstances would be just right. If only these circumstances were imposed on you or you impose them on yourselves. You are capable of some darkness. And we know that this is true because every once in a while we run into a tribe of people who have never heard of Jesus Christ or Muhammad or Buddha or Vishnu or Tom Cruise or whatever, right? Did you think that last one was funny? I thought that was hilarious. But You know what I'm saying? Like, these are untouched people. This is a very rare opportunity that we can look at an untouched people and see what they've come up with. Who are you people? How have you developed? Are you good people or are you bad people? Is there a difference? Right? There's people out there that'll say, like, well, morality is pretty subjective. And, there's people, like, I was reading on this guy, this poor guy that just got killed just the other day. I was reading the story on The Guardian. God forgive me. But I wasn't really reading it on The Guardian. I was actually looking for the comments. And I was appalled. Not surprised, but appalled at what people are saying. Oh, this guy deserved it. Oh, this is just like the Crusades. And again, oh God, you know how much I love it when stupid people, atheists, bring up the Crusades. It's like, oh please, I'm sorry, I've never heard of the Crusades. Tell me about the Crusades. Is that when all the Christians went down to the peaceful Muslims who were just down in the Middle East having a gigantic Burning Man party? Just tripping balls, man, being one with nature, and the evil Christians just showed up and started slaughtering them all? Was it that Crusades? Is that your you know what I mean? It's like, is that your version of what happened? Dumbass. Anyways, there's people that'll look at this and be like, well, you see, there is no immorality because, these people, they just think, it's okay to stab people with spears until they're dead. And it's like, no. My civilization, Western civilization, right? The fact that I'm from a Christian nation is superior. We do know the difference between right and wrong. We do value life above all. And the more innocent the life, the more we value it. The more guilty the life, the less we value it. We don't place value on people who are psychopathic, narcissistic, sociopathic murderers who kill children. We have no value for those people because they have lost value of life itself. And so we as a society say, okay, we're sorry, you're not any good anymore. You cannot be on the same planet as us. You may not share and occupy the same cross-section of space-time with us because you're ruined. You have lost every bit of your innocence. Now, God may forgive you, and that's what we hope for you. But as far as mankind is concerned, it's like we cannot in good conscience leave you around our people because you have no value of life. And you've killed a lot of people, so sorry, you got to go. Right? And we execute those people. You see what I'm saying? And so when we look at this tribe of people who evidently have a history of stabbing people to death with spears, people look at this and think like, morality, it's really subjective. It's like, no, it's not. Those people are wrong. Those people are wrong, and they have a shitty morality, a inferior morality, and I have a superior one. My morality is superior to theirs. There's people out there that'll be like, oh, how can you say that? You're like the postmodernists. It's like, dude, I'm done with you. I'm done with you. An innocent man just got killed for no reason. Because these people don't have any culture. And the culture, whatever culture they do have, it involves killing people from the outside world. That is a bad culture. Right? But that's not really what I wanted to get to. The point is that those people that lived on that island who just killed young John Allen Chau, a Christian missionary, those people are human beings. And whatever they're capable of, you are capable of. Right? They're not monkeys. They're not Bigfoot. Right? They're not a tribe of Bigfoot people. They're not the missing link. They're not the missing link between ape and man. They are just as much human being as you are. They have the same amount of complexity in their DNA that you do. Exactly the same. Do you understand that? And so whenever we see this, we have to stop and look and like be thankful. Be thankful that you grew up in the Judeo-Christian world, where we have sayings like, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's property. These sorts of things. This is what happens when you look at these tribes. It's like, this is what happens. When people make the argument like, well, how can you say that you could not have come to the same conclusion, morality-wise? And it's like, well, because every time we run into a pure test group of people, we can see clearly what exactly you would come to, the conclusion that you would come to, if you had no idea of the Judeo-Christian ethic and Judeo-Christian morality. We can see exactly what you would turn into if that were the case. And here it is once again, and the reason I want to bring this up is this isn't going to happen again for probably another 10 years or so, because this missionaries getting killed in this fashion it's rare, but it's consistent. You know what I mean? It happens fairly regularly, but there's big gaps in time between when it happens, and this won't happen again. So I want to bring it up now and just be like, you read the story. You pull up, missionary killed, or U.S. missionary John Allen Chau, Chau. You Google it. You look it up. You read the story. You look at that and think to yourself, like, who are these people that did that? Why is it that they are so violent? And by the way, this isn't the first guy that this particular tribe has killed. And there's a lot more people out there like that, and every time we run into them, it's always the same. You should look at that and be grateful, like, I was born into a culture that, as far as morality is concerned, is superior. Now, there's some things about those people that I'm sure is superior, like their food. I guarantee you those people eat clean food every day that's good. I guarantee you that not a single one of their 150 to 250 tribe members have ever died of cancer. Guaranteed. You know what I mean? Because they drink clean water, they eat clean food, and whatever, unless they're, into cannibalism or whatever. But as far as like what's really important, like morality and like the condition of your own soul and your ability to sit back and like think about, the right things that you've done and the wrong things that you've done, and to be able to negotiate and navigate your way through life and correcting your own course. These people have none of that. So thank God. Thank God that we were born into the place in space and time that we were. Right? That we weren't born 500 years ago, even in Europe, where things were still, even though it was Christianity had really spread, it was still very barbaric. Right? It took a long time, man. It took a long time and a lot of work to get to where we are. And I think it deserves to be observed by you. And God help this poor guy and his family. There's certainly a different class of missionaries out there, like first contact missionaries. Like, they know, like, even this guy, he's in his last writings to his family, like, even he was acknowledging, like, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to get killed on this trip. Says Chau wrote in a note to his family written shortly before his death. He said, "You guys might think I'm crazy in all of this, but I think it's worthwhile to declare Jesus to these people. God, I don't want to die." End quote. All right, so he knew the risks. I'm not trying to make light of anything. God bless this man's family. God bless him. But that's, whenever I see stuff like that, I don't just see the tragic loss of life. It's like pull it apart. Take this opportunity. They're very rare nowadays. When we have an opportunity to look at a first contact scenario and see what happens, and judge these people accordingly. It's like, man, we have this pristine swath of people, these untouched people. Now let's go look at how they behave and look at their culture. And we can see, like, oh, there's a reason why we understand that Christian civilization is superior. Because we don't just stab people when they show up and they look different than us and they scare us or whatever. That's it. That's the show for today. If you guys want to support the show, listen. If you support what you like, you get to keep it. If you don't support what you like, it goes away. And I would appreciate it if you support the show by hitting subscribe, primarily. If you want to become a monthly patron, you can go to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com. Pretty soon in March, I'm going to have to pay for the website because my 3 years is up on that in March. So again, guys, please support the show. Go on to archadvocate.com. You can either do PayPal or if you want to become a monthly patron, you can do that too. And do it before they pull me, because I mentioned this before, like iTunes, they won't let me get ranked anymore. And there's, the censorship is already affecting even small podcasts like my own. So I need your help. If you want to support me, go on to, support the show. Go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com, and support me there. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.